Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. It's Friday, it's 5pm again, and it's nice to be on a Friday again. Thursday was weird. I didn't know what to do with my Friday last week.
Do a live show.
Oh, that's what we did. I'm still at 6s and 7s. Easter messes me up, particularly with the amount we drank on that day.
All right. Yeah, it was a big one, eh?
Yeah. How did you enjoy the Siren Show? It was like a 9-hour Zoom call, but
it was well long. But it was enjoyable. It was kind of weird because usually with the live shows, we're the masters of our own destiny. We are fully in control of all the audio video equipment. But this one, we were kind of almost passengers in the ride to a certain extent, which was a little bit unsettling. But yeah, it was really great. The beers were awesome. You know, some of the other guests were great as well. And yeah, I mean, mate, the highlight for me were the snacks. The chicken salt fries, I think, are a contender for the best crisp ever. And I think I've had them in foreign climes somewhere, maybe out in Spain at a bar or something. Although you wouldn't really want to eat those things from a bar snack because they'd just be filth magnets. But I've had them maybe once in my deep, dark history. But they were a revelation when I tried those things, mate. Amazing.
I love the flavour and I love the texture, but they're a pain to eat.
You just like get really dirty.
Around and,
you pick them up, your hands are covered in the chicken salt. And then you've got to you kind of want to lick your hands. Yeah, that's it. You kind of want to lick your hands. So they're like a donut where you can't help but lick your lips and all your fingers because the sugar gets everywhere. The fucking chicken salt gets everywhere. But they are superior snacks. I do like them a lot. But as you say, personal servings only because you're going to get all kinds of COVID from sharing those
all the
fuckers.
Variants.
That's it.
Yeah, and I mean the beer was absolutely amazing as well. I loved the double IPA. I thought the porter, Bones of a Sailor, was utterly amazing.
That is incredible.
And probably cracking the barley wine when we only had half an hour of the show left was a mistake, but I did also enjoy that.
Tasty good.
And falling asleep on the train home as well. That was good fun.
Classic stuff.
I woke up in time. It was all good. So yes, that was our Siren Show. I believe if you missed it, you can still watch it. Siren still have it live somewhere, but I think you had to buy the box possibly to watch it. But if you missed that, you weren't part of that, you'll be delighted to know that tonight, in fact in a matter of hours, we are going live with the amazing Pohjola Brewery from Tallinn, Estonia, one of the greatest stout and dark beer brewers and masters of barrel aging as well. We've got 2 Baltic porters that have been barrel aged, we've got a double IPA made with forage spruce tips, we've got a sour fruited ale, and we've got a lovely Pilsner. It's going to be quite the night. A nice easy session then with those giant yeah, I think the
beers.
average ABV is around about 9.
But by the Zeus of beard, by the beard of Zeus, even I can't even get my phrases right. That is
cracked
insane.
The bottles already.
I think I might have done. I'm still waiting for him to bloody turn up as usual. So that's always fun and games.
Bradley,
isn't it?
there's certain things behind the curtain we don't tell people, and one of them is how disorganised the actual us getting hold of the beer can be.
God damn it.
But yes, it will arrive. I have faith.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, tonight, if you are listening to this in time, tonight we will be going live with Pahala at 7:30 p.m. on our YouTube channel. There's a link in the description box below. Even if you listen to this late, you can still watch that live show afterwards. You just obviously can't interact with us because that would be time travel. So Bradley, how's your week been? Have you done anything beery?
I mean, we did that beery at the end of last week, which gave me a beery hangover into the beginning of this week. But I've just been hard at it with other work stuff. We've got some things in the background that we're working on, which we're formulating ideas for. So we've been doing beery stuff, but for me it's been more thinking about into the future beery stuff and not drinking beery stuff, which is the preferable thing to be doing. How about yourself, Johnny?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been trailing these big announcements for a long time. They keep getting pushed back for a reason that will become clear in the first video. But yeah, we are getting there. I haven't done that much beery stuff actually this week either, like actual beery stuff. I'm prepping for next week when the outsides of pubs are open. But I spent a happy couple of hours yesterday writing tweets and then deleting them off the back of Fourpure. They've done a rebrand of their lager.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Now, back when we started the channel, we loved Fourpure. We loved their Pilsner as well. It was one of the first UK breweries that were, I think they were krausening. They were, getting the natural carbonation, and it was a beautiful hoppy Pilsner. I don't know what the lager is now, but the branding of it is kind of beautiful, but it's so reductive of the style of lager. Like the way they released it, they put tasting note, they put like aroma, lager, flavor, lager, finish, lager. And you're like, that's the last thing we need. I know you think it's funny, but that's what people already think.
Yeah.
And what we've been doing on the Craft Beer channel for 8 years now is trying to say lager isn't a style. It's a method and a yeast, and there are hundreds of different styles. Not hundreds, tens of different styles of lager, and endless variation within that. And all you're doing in trying to reach a greater audience is dumbing it down for them, which I think in the long term is a stupid fucking thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of see what they're doing here. They've, like you say, the new branding is kind of beautiful. It looks a bit like a sort of old 50s petroleum metal sign or something.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's got that kind of vintage Americana look to it. But yeah, the tasting notes are a joke, to be honest. And you're right, it is setting back the sort of good work everyone's trying to do by just saying lager. And just, like it's sort of disrespecting lager in a certain. I'm just looking at it now on the website. It just says light, crisp, refreshing. I mean,
and that's fine. Those are tasting notes.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
But in the actual launch of it, there's a launch video. I'll put a link to it. But yeah, it just really annoyed me that we can't get past this idea of lager being basic. There's a huge difference between like boring and nuanced, right?
Definitely.
And they remove all the nuance and just leave basic, boring behind.
Is it almost hating on the crispy boy? Because I've got this theory, which is why in Lowbrow, the first episode of Lowbrow, I want to take back the terminology of crispy boy and celebrate it, because I feel like it's become a derogatory term. So do we feel this is almost sort of, kind of feeding into that kind of same mentality of like almost not respecting lagers for how amazing they are?
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of it's this reaction against, complexity and artisanal approaches, like this whole like beer is just beer kind of thing.
Yeah. Which
is cool, and it is when you're drinking it, but you've got to understand why you've made those decisions and why this beer tastes delicious and why you want to just crush it in 30 seconds. We shouldn't It's almost like, when like hipsters love, sorry, I hate the term hipsters because that's really reductive as well. But when certain types of people like started loving Red Stripe again or Pabst Blue Ribbon, sort of ironically loving it. And that I really hate that kind of process. And that's what's happening to Crispy Boy. Like it became like a slightly cheeky term for a really simple, beautiful, crisp lager. And now it's become like an anti-craft kind of message.
Not anymore,
yeah.
Johnny. We're taking it back with our crispy boy ratings, mate.
There you go. Exactly. We'll change it that way. So the other thing that yesterday I was writing some tweets and then deleting tweets about is a video that's gone viral recently. You said he's from Deptford, is that right?
Yeah, he's from Deptford. Yeah, he drinks in the Dog and Bell, which is a great boozer for any sort of South Londoners that haven't tried it.
Well, there you go. Next time you see him in there,
yeah, go on.
Can you have a word with him? Because so this video is called Punk Squirrel IPA, and it's him poking fun at the fact that, craft beer tries to have this very punk attitude to beer. It's basically a pastiche of a beer that Brewdog might make. But it's peppered with all these things, like him with his hat backwards, saying like,
I'm 43.
Punk Squirrel IPA, I'm 43. And then he fails to do a kickflip and stuff. It's so it's so basic, and it's not very well performed, but it's also very on point.
It cuts, mate. It's like a paper cut. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, that video, because you're watching it and you're like, oh dear.
It's like, it shouldn't hurt, but it does.
Oh,
just
that's
like
so paid for. Yeah, it is. I mean, like, mate, I'm not 43, but I am 38, and I do wear my hat backwards. So
you do,
I am one of the dickheads. So there you go.
So it's had this reaction online of some people like being furious and saying, this is insulting, and it's not got any basis in truth. But I think you have to be self-aware enough to realise that it 100% does. Most of the people that started their breweries 10 years ago in their late 20s or early 30s are now middle-aged men who maybe still dress, and I include myself in this, like we're early 20s. And it also, really hammers home this super male, almost alpha male kind of image that craft beer has outside of it. And within it, we're like, no, it's not necessarily like that, and we don't want it to be like that. But that's how it's seen. And so everyone that got offended by it, really, it should have been a revelation to them, like a real wake-up moment. This is how craft beer is seen, and there's so much work we still have to do to get rid of those barriers to entry and get everybody interested, so it's not seen as a 43-year-old plaid-wearing man with his hat backwards. It's actually, getting increasingly diverse, and there's more we need to do to make that happen.
Yes, mate.
It's in everyone's interest.
I did think it was pretty spot on, and I did giggle at it a couple of times. And I like the fact he's from Deptford. Anyone who wants to give it a watch, his name's Mr. Alistair Green on Instagram.
We'll put a link to it as well,
cool.
and you guys can
make up your own.
Exactly that.
That's what we're
right. That's Johnny's rants done for the week. Shall we look at the video?
Great video, man, isn't it?
I was so nervous recording this. Like, I'd put off doing What Is Lambic for a while we sort of dialed in the format and got it right. And then we got 8 minutes into recording, and then I just went, no, Brad, this isn't good enough. And we went back and started again. Yeah. And I'm so glad we did.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. Definitely.
It's a surprisingly tight bit of conversation from us.
It's such a complicated thing to get your head around, Lambic, as well. So to be able to cover it in under 20 minutes and try a couple of the styles and have a bit of a laugh at the same time, I thought was excellent. I had a great time. And the beers, wow, we were delicious as always.
Yeah, we tried the Resurgam on the channel before, and I enjoyed it that first time, but that bottle was just, like apricot yogurt. It was amazing. Crazy good, mate. Yeah, absolutely loved it. I'm going to have to, I think there's still some more on the Cloudwater web shop. I might have to pick up some more bottles because it was amazing. So yeah, this week was What Even Is Lambic, in which in 17 minutes we described the whole process of one of the most natural forms of making beer, and kind of like the Omega beer. Like, there's lots of processes in that would have been going on for millennia. And it's also one of those, there's real gatekeepers to the world of Lambic who can be really particular about the facts and about the myths and stuff. And we haven't had any bad reaction like we did with the mild and the porter episodes. Oh, yeah. So clearly we I think we hit the nail on the head.
We either hit the nail on the head, or nobody else knows enough to contradict us.
or we've got it wrong twice already that those people don't bother watching our videos anymore.
They've unsubscribed.
Yeah, so give that a watch if you haven't. Bradley, what comments did you enjoy under the video?
Yeah, so I got a couple. one from Diego Abreu, who said Brad is an old goose with a heart, which I don't know. Well, I mean I like an old goose. I suppose we were talking about how you sort of blend old and young, and I guess he's commenting on the fact I look old. So thank you, Diego.
Young at heart, but
old in the hair, grey at hair.
Or maybe we could just say, you're a perfect blend of funky.
Well, he could have said that, couldn't he?
And
funky. Yeah. I like it, Johnny. Keep going. Perfect blend of funky.
Funky. Delicious.
Oh God.
No, a little bit farmy.
Yeah, a little bit farmy. A little bit horse blanket.
Yeah, but still refined.
Oh, mate, spoiling me with these adjectives or whatever those words are called.
I managed to find a compliment in the end. It. I'm worried by how long that took.
Thanks, man. So I love that comment from Diego, and then I had another comment from Ken Mahoney, who said Lambic is just BDSM for beer geeks.
I saw that. I don't get it.
Anyone who doesn't know, BDSM stands for bondage. Bondage and sadomasochism, I believe. So it's a sort of sexual terminology of people that like to get a bit freaky and maybe a bit of torture,
pain with the pleasure.
Of pain with the pleasure. So you're not sure what he means by that. I think maybe he means by that. Obviously, the flavours are kind of out there and stuff, but I don't think he's going on about that. We were talking about a turbid mash being a bit of a torture chamber for several hours where it gets like super heated up and all the rest of it. So I think he maybe is referring to the turbid mash torture chamber.
Interesting. I mean, if you look at the B-roll we used, I forget which brewery we were actually in. It might be... No, I don't want to say because I can't quite remember. But there's lots of pulleys and belts,
yeah, man,
and things that
whips,
could be
whips and butt plugs, and all sorts going on.
No, there wasn't. No, Bradley, back up. Just chains and belts and pulleys.
Oh, just the torture equipment. That's all right then.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it is a.
It does. It does look a bit like a dark sex dungeon potentially. Maybe he's just saying that. It's sort of like all of these little cave places are like a dark sex dungeon. Is it a funk dungeon? Is that who's the funk dungeon? He's got the funk dungeon.
The funk dungeon is the wild side of the amazing Aberdeen up in Sheffield.
Funk dungeon. I always love that name. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So I love that comment. I mean, as well as being a turbid mash torture chamber, Johnny, the process does involve a bit of a pool party for wild yeast with the cool shipping process. So it's not all like dark and dangerous and torturous. It can be fun and enjoyable as well, right?
Lots of slightly relevant metaphors for Gers. I'm glad we didn't go down either of those too far. Although at the start of the video we were in danger of going down the pool party road a little more than would have been sensible and might have upset some of the what I term actually Lambic fans.
The next time we get out to the Pajosson land, Johnny, can we please do a music video in the style of Pet Shop Boys where we're singing West End Girls?
I mean, in the very first trip we did, where we called it the Cantillon Run, and we drove out when I was working at Cave to pick up a pallet of Cantillon. We were singing Girls on Film.
Great stuff.
All the way over, because obviously we were filming and picking up Gers. But
picking up Gers, eh?
Picking up Gers.
That was before you were married.
Definitely Gers there, not girls. So yeah, I mean we're all over the Gers puns. Don't you worry.
Oh yeah.
So in terms of comments that don't lead us down dark avenues, Ian Laker. I mean this is just us. Making ourselves feel special. But Ian Laker said, my knowledge of all things beer and specifically spontaneous wild fermentation of Lambic beer came from watching the great Michael Jackson. And then, of course, puts in brackets, no, not that one.
Never gets
old. The Beer Hunter years ago and reading his excellent books. So he had a TV show called The Beer Hunter, which is still absolutely amazing. And he says, you're carrying on the great tradition. I look forward to each video. Which, I mean, the idea of being compared to Michael Jackson and say we're carrying on his legacy, because tragically he died in 2005, I think, is basically what I've been trying to achieve for the full 8 years we've been around.
It's a dream. It's a dream for sure.
I watched all of his videos. Lots of them are on YouTube, and are well worth a watch. Also, what's well worth a watch, and I will put a link to this in the show notes, is him on, because when he was the only beer writer in the world, he was a celebrity, particularly in America, and he was on David Letterman show.
That's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, and he was drinking. I think it was a Gers he took on there, maybe, or no, it was. I think it was an unusual Boston beer, or something like that. And he's there with grade A Hollywood celeb, and he's on there talking about beer. And it's a wonderful watch. It's also a slightly heartbreaking watch. So he actually had Parkinson's, which he didn't tell anyone at the time. And they're all taking the mick out of him, shaking, pretending he's drunk, and knowing what he was going through. And, he was hiding it, I think, maybe because there was stigma, or because it would have prevented him getting some work. It's a bit of a heartbreaking watch. So if you want to feel happy sad, give that a watch. Michael Jackson was an absolute legend, and one of the reasons we can talk about beer in the way we do, he literally invented the language that we use, and the style guides, were all down to him.
He was on Conan O'Brien, Johnny.
Conan O'Brien, sorry, not David Letterman.
Conan O'Brien. Yeah, great stuff.
Then we've got another comment from Father Earth 93. He said, in love with Lambic since my first Lambic, the unbeaten Cantillon Gers. Lambics are the beers where you can see best that brewing is also an art. And I totally agree with that, because, Lambic's subjective. It's down to the blend that the brewer wants to put together. And I think, one of the key things about art is that it's subjective. There's not a formula for creating it. So, yeah, I just really love that comment. And we talked about science versus art quite recently on the podcast, I think. I'm trying to remember which episode that was.
I can't remember why, but we definitely did.
Yeah. So just love to bring that little bit of tension into beer writing up whenever it surfaces. We've got a question this week from James Newman. It's a great question as well, all about glassware, off of the back of a fun discussion we had on our 5 Points live stream a couple of weeks ago. So let's hear from James Newman, and we'll be back with some nerdiness all about glassware.
Hi there, my name's James, and I had a question about glassware. The other week you did a great live stream on car scale, and somebody was suggesting that one way to attract the kind of, the non-traditional, typically male, drinkers, if you want to attract more people, broader audience, then it'd be a great idea to have different types of glassware. So, a 2/3 of a pint or half a pint, but some nice glassware. And it got me thinking about, because I've lived in Belgium and the UK, and it got me thinking about how my time in Belgium, they have a huge amount of pride in Belgium in terms of their glassware. As I'm sure you guys know, you go to a bar in Belgium and they have a beautiful glass, and every beer is served in the right glass. So the glass will have the same brand, the same make as the beer that you have. And I think it's just a great thing that they do in Belgium. And yeah, so I was just wondering, how that could be changed here. Obviously, I don't think it would completely change. I don't think UK could completely replicate the Belgian model, but I do find it a bit boring that in England, most pubs, you just get the standard pint glass. As much as I like that glass, it can be a bit dull. So yeah, it'd be great to hear your comments on how this kind of glassware culture could be changed, if it can be. Cheers.
So, thank you, James. The first thing I think I'll say, just before we dive into the geekiness of glassware, but glassware, from my experience when I was a beer distributor at Cave Direct, glassware was so important. Like, think about Peroni, right? This, genuinely quite shit lager that has taken over London in particular, but most of the UK is sort of this premium lager. All of that is down to the beautiful glassware that they had and how it fitted into their branding. That is a glassware brand at the end of the day. Those tall slim glasses that just add this premium kind of feel. So that's definitely a huge part of why glassware matters. Just literally the way it feels in your hand, the way it looks, the way it fits in with your branding. And Belgium really know that, because from a technical perspective, a lot of Belgian glasses are not great for getting good aromas, looking after the beer, that kind of thing. But, it's such a vital part of Belgian beer culture, and I really wish we had it over here.
Yeah, mate. I mean, to go back to Peroni, I think also the fact that thing looks about twice the size of a regular pint because it's so frigging tall. Yeah. It would have made anyone who'd brought that back from a bar go, "What have you got?" Because it looks absolutely gigantic. But yeah, I think, there's something very, very special about getting served a beer in its own glassware. I guess the only other sort of beer that we could say is, well, no, I mean, there's loads, but another one would be Guinness, where, if you don't get served a Guinness in a Guinness pint glass, then you're going to be pretty annoyed about that.
Absolutely. That's a huge part of Guinness's appeal as well.
So yeah, there's something to it. Just raises the game, and it makes it feel more special, more sense of an occasion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I would love to have that kind of Belgium glass culture implemented over here more. I can't really see how feasible it is, because first of all, like, how do you stock so many different glasses in, quite small bars? A lot of them over here in the UK. I don't know whether we're set up to have that amount of glassware. Like, I'm just thinking about all of the different beers you can get in a Belgian bar. The glass store must be huge.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's not. So to look at sort of the differences in pub and beer culture between the two nations and brewing culture, the first thing is that, this developed in Belgium, this obsession with the right glass for the right beer, with breweries that only had a couple of beers. So most breweries in Belgium only have a couple of brands. So they'll have 2 or 3, probably the most they'd have is like Rochefort, who have 3, look at like Bastille's. They had Quack, they had Triple Carmelie, and they had Deus. That was it. And so they'd have a specific glass for each brand, and that'd be part of the growth of that brand. In the UK, we have always had a lot more styles than that brew. Not always, sorry. In the last sort of 100 years, we've always had a couple more styles coming out. And then within the last 20 years, some breweries have more than 3 beers come out in a week. So,
it's just not feasible.
Yeah, and there'll probably be different styles as well. So you'd have to come up with glassware that suited all these different styles. So there's a huge problem with that in any sort of young craft market. The
margins are not there either, right? For making this glassware.
And the glassware is incredibly expensive as well. The other thing to note is that a lot of Belgian bars, Belgium has lots of small, intimate, beautiful bars with probably like 6 taps and some bottles. And it's all about great service, so table service. It's all about sipping your beer and taking it slowly. And it's all about like having a good ratio of staff to consumer. Whereas in the UK, we have these like giant super pubs where 2 or 3 bar staff will be looking after about 400 people. In like these big Weatherspoons and stuff. So you don't have the chance like to collect the glassware to keep it going. You don't have enough glassware of one type for you to be able to, have, if you've got 20 taps, you need 20 different bits of glassware. So, that's just not possible as well. But I think there's definitely an opportunity in the UK and in all nations to try and introduce that. And we've seen it, like German lagers often have their own glasses. Obviously, the Belgian beers in the UK have their own glasses, and it works in these smaller bars where you can have table service, where you can, really get that service right. And people probably won't nick it going out the door, which is the other issue we have in the UK. Whenever there's a nice glass, we bloody nick it.
We'll nick it. We are a nicking culture for sure.
Yeah. So,
do you think? I think there's something quite nice that like we have to go to Belgium to get that experience as well. That makes it more special that it happens over there. Mm. Like if it's everywhere and we're all doing it, it's less special. It's more homogenous.
Yeah. I mean, that said, I'd love to see it in the UK. Most craft breweries now have their own glassware that sort of goes across all the brands, and I love like the Lost and Grounded glassware, like the Willy Betcher, which is a great shape of glass. I love, our craft beer glasses, craft beer channel glasses, that's so good for pretty much every style. Like those stemless wine glasses, they're great as well. So I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we have certain glassware for certain beers, but it would be really great if more pubs managed to have certain glassware for certain breweries, if they have like permanent taps on, which again is another thing in the UK. We generally don't do permanent taps in craft beer bars. It's all about sort of rotation, a different thing every time. So I guess in answer to James, we'd love it, but it's never going to happen. But, beautiful glassware should be celebrated, and where we can get it in an on-trade arena, then that just enhances the experience.
100%.
Yeah. There we go. Well, we're at 28 minutes. Oh boy, that flew by. Cool. And we've got to go prep for the average of 9% ABV in the Pahala tasting. So we'll leave it there. We're talking about bitters next week in our video on the channel, so watch out for that. And we've also got the next feature-length bubble episode bubbling away behind the scenes, so that will probably be next Sunday, I reckon. That will go live, so look forward to that. Hopefully see you all tonight. Otherwise, love and beer. The Bubble Podcast is brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's Craft Beer channel. Head to youtube.com/the Craft Beer channel to watch this week's video and over 400 more exciting episodes. If you love what we do, please do subscribe and even join our Patreon at patreon.com/craftbeer channel. Love and beer.